Chapter 9. Captain Seth was rather exhausted now, perhaps from getting pummeled by holograms, or maybe it was the extremely philosophical but dizzying conversations he had with his engineer. But in looking at his roster, he saw that he had only one more officer to meet, his counselor. The computer informed him that the counselor was located in another one of his holodecks. What was it with all of his senior officers running to the holodecks their first day on the job, Seth wondered. But when he entered the doors, it wasn't what he expected at all. He was at a casino. It was bright, loud, and looked fun. There were just so many people laughing, drinking, and throwing around a lot of green pieces of paper. It even smelled smoky, which was a sensation that he was not used to. He asked the computer which table his counselor was sitting at, and the computer led him to it. But the table that she was apparently sitting at was very unusual. The people that were sitting there looked like characters out of an old exobiology textbook. One looked like a human pirate, another a little Klingon, another a Xindi aquatic, and the last a Borg queen. Seth trusted that they were all only holograms. The only way he could spot the counselor was the fact that he could see a Starfleet insignia on one of the women. But the woman was entirely green. By human standards, she looked to be in her early 30s. Her hair was especially green, dark, shoulder length, and had a nice curl. Her skin was only a light shade of green and contrasted the dark color of her hair well. Her eyes were frosted yellow. She actually didn't look too out of place from the rest of the silly characters at the table. Seth looked over the table to watch the game. The dealer had just finished dealing out the cards who glared at the next player up to bet. It was the Xindi aquatic sitting to the left of the dealer who bet 1,000 to match the big blind. The holographic human bet 3,000. The next two players, the pirate and the little Klingon, folded their hands. Next to play was the counselor.
Call.
The Borg queen folded. Seth could see the queen's 5 mechanical fingers split into 10, allowing her to effortlessly shuffle 3 stacks of chips into one. The Xindi also called.
6 of clubs, king of diamonds, and queen of diamonds.
The Xindi was first to act. Seth had never met a Xindi, but he would have suspected it to be a mean player. Instead, it sat there quietly, pondering over its next move. He checked. The man next to him looked carefully at the Xindi and decided to continue with his forceful moves. He bet 8,000. The counselor stared at the human with her large frosted eyes.
Raised to 20,000.
The Xindi threw in his hand in disgust. The human pondered for a moment and played around with his chips with his hand. He called.
Queen of clubs.
Everyone stared in anticipation of what the human male would do. But there was no hesitation. He already made his decision to go all in. The dealer counted his chips. 40,000. The captain watched the game intently. It seemed like the man was trying to represent the top hand. Or perhaps he was drawing out for something ambitious, like kings full of queens. It didn't look like he was trying to bluff. The counselor smiled.
Call.
She let out a puff of smoke from her cigar. She flipped over her cards. Queen and a 9 of hearts. She was the one who had tripped queens. The human male flipped over his cards. A king of spades and a 6 of diamonds. He already had 2 pair, but it wasn't quite enough to beat the counselor. He was chasing that full house. He needed another king to win. That was not out of the realm of possibility. With 2 outs, there was still a 4% probability that he would get one. Another 6 wouldn't help him, because that would give the counselor queens full of 6s. The dealer turned over the last card.
10 of clubs.
The counselor had won with her trip queens over his dead hand of 2 pair. She squealed with excitement and collected all of her chips. The holographic male was furious. That was the 3rd time she had burned him today, and he was out of the money big time. He lost 8 bars of gold-pressed latinum just today. He got up and slammed the table with his hand and let out a curse. Seth stepped in, just in case he was going to try and hurt his counselor.
Don't think that looking like a famous poker champion would raise your chances of winning. Next time, wear some sunglasses. Commander Bile was always a poor loser.
Oh?
But I appreciate your concern. It's very cute.
I'm Captain Darren Seth.
I'm Jenovia, ship's counselor.
No last name?
What is it with you humans that think that everyone has a first and last name?
I don't remember this program being in the database.
It's my personal program, but you're welcome to use it if you like. Why don't you join us? We've got an empty seat now. As you can probably tell, it's $500, $1,000 no-limit hold'em.
All right, sure. But I warn you that it's been a little while since I last played. I'm a little out of practice.
It's a human game, you know.
He sat down. He gestured to the dealer to hand him some chips. The dealer just looked at him oddly.
What are you doing?
I need some chips.
Oh, you have to buy those chips.
Are you kidding? This is a holodeck program.
Yes, but it's my program. And I say anyone who plays at my table has to buy in.
All right, how much? I don't exactly have money here. This is the 25th century, you know.
Buy-in is 2 bars of gold-pressed latinum. Each bar buys you 40,000 at this table. Don't mind the conversion, I just made it that way. You can pay on credit if you'd like. I know you're good for it.
Great. I meet you for 1 minute, and already you have something on me.
Without something at stake, Captain, life's no fun. Besides, you'd be surprised what you'd be able to get out of a Ferengi when you have enough latinum.
Seth peeked at his cards, an ace of clubs and 4 of diamonds. Good enough. He was the first to act after the Borg Queen and the Xindi threw in their blinds and raised the bet. The pirate and the Klingon folded, but when the Klingon threw in his hand, the little guy climbed aboard the table and yelled a Klingon curse that surprised even the counselor. The counselor, the Borg Queen, and the Xindi called his raise. The dealer turned the flop. 4 of hearts, king of hearts, and 2 of clubs. Not exactly the flop Seth was hoping for, but it wasn't the worst. He knew that his pair of 4s was hardly a hand to be pushing people around with, but he wanted to know if anyone had actually paired up with a king. And with only 4 people in the hand, it was possible that no one had one. Besides, it wouldn't hurt to at least represent that he had the kings. His suspicions were confirmed when the Borg Queen and the Xindi only checked. Jenovia stared at him, piercingly. It was easy for her to do that with her frosted yellow eyes. It was both beautiful and intimidating, like staring into Medusa. The Borg Queen took another look at her cards, and a cold voice came from her lips as she folded. The Xindi called. The dealer showed the turn. 6 of hearts. Nothing. His pair of 4s was looking weaker. Even if she only had a low pair, like 5s or 6s, he would lose. He needed another 4 or an ace to show up on the board. Damn, he thought. The Xindi promptly folded. He knew how she was playing him, but what was she doing? What did she have? He currently had near 2-to-1 pot odds and a far less probability that he would win on the river. He decided that it just wasn't worth the risk. He threw in his cards.
Take it.
Jenovia smiled. Since Seth was new to the table, she decided to show him her cards. 2 of diamonds and an 8 of clubs. Seth just scoffed at her.
You know, I don't think I want to play anymore.
Already? Oh, come on, don't let your counselor intimidate you. I'll be more gentle from now on. I promise.
No, it's time for me to go anyway. I have duties to attend to.
Here, I'll walk with you. You guys keep on playing.
Computer, exit. So, should I ask if you're a telepath? Or would that be considered rude?
You don't need to be a telepath at all to play Hold'em. I can tell you that I certainly am not one.
You're not even an empath?
I'm not a telepath or an empath or any path. I can only see what you're telling me.
What species are you? You don't look familiar to me at all.
We're known as the Valenis. Most people mistaken us for the Orions, but in truth we don't associate much with them. Our similarities end with the skin. And no, we don't have slave girls on our world.
I've never heard of your kind before.
As a species, we have heightened senses when it comes to observation. Every time you swallow, look at the ground, bite your lip, fidget with your nose, it tells me everything I need to know. Your asympathetic nervous system is even worse for you because you can't consciously control it. We can detect even the most subtle changes, an increase in pulse rate, changes in the skin, even the slightest change in sweat production. We make very good doctors.
I can see why.
At times, all of this can give us the appearance of psychic abilities. But in truth, humans give everything away without saying a word. Klingons are even easier.
And you play poker with holograms to hone your observation skills.
As I'm sure people have told you before, In poker, you play the player, not the hand. And they're not holograms, Captain. They're actual players from other ships who are using holographic projections on our holodeck to play. That is, if their ships are within range. Players can choose their own avatars.
So that guy really was Commander Bile of the USS Valero?
That's right. They can have any projection they want, but it has to be a humanoid so that we can see each other's faces. No dogs or cats or inanimate objects. There has to be a face. And what fun would it be to play against empty holograms? Besides, I couldn't make any real money if that were the case. Commander Bile still owes me 16 bars of gold-pressed latinum, plus interest. It would be great to introduce your senior staff to the game. I'll bet playing with that Breen soldier would be very interesting.
I'll mention that to him when I see him next, but he doesn't seem like the poker type.
I also insist that the physiological responses of the holograms be tied with those of the player. Your most obvious physiological responses are most evident when you are either afraid that you have something valuable to lose, or you become excited about what you might gain. It is why I insist that a player buy in to play. The player needs to have something at stake. Otherwise, there is no point in even playing. Let's face it, such is the game of life.
And what if players decided to put on sunglasses to cover their eyes?
To me, that would be like telling a Klingon to hunt down a Ferengi with one eye closed. It just doesn't matter.
Remind me not to play you anymore.
Poker is already a game that is half probability and game theory and half gut feeling. I simply tip the scale towards a more scientific approach by being cognizant of humanoid physiological responses to certain events.
Seems hardly fair for a human to play you.
I've been beaten by humans many times before, and not because of luck. Don't ever underestimate the power of instinct, Captain. You might be interested to know that I had a chance to play Captain Santiago from the Excelsior.
You did?
Not to worry, he wasn't one of those people able to beat me. I cleaned him out, actually. He was furious. Quite frankly, he was even easier to read than you.
He's certainly an upfront individual.
You guys are easy. I would normally never play with a hand like a 2 of diamonds and an 8 of clubs.
Oh.
Santiago even tried to recruit me.
What? Before I even met you? He just boarded my ship.
Well, he said that you were busy, so he stopped by here. He made me quite an offer, one of the largest quarters on his ship, with perks that would make an admiral jealous. Again, not to worry, I declined, but he seemed adamant that his ship and crew were more capable than we were, that the Excelsior overall was a better ship.
He would say that. He's an arrogant ass. Wait, how much did he believe that?
He believed in it 110%.
Arrogant ass.
I obviously objected, but I suggested one way to settle.
Shit. What time is it?
It's 2010 hours. Why?
I owe an arrogant ass a drink.